It's time for the North Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
Hey, what's up? Welcome in North Idaho Prepcast, IdahoSports.com, District 1 and 2 breakdown, week in, week out. Brandon Baney joined by Ryan Scaggs. What's up, Scaggs?
What's going on?
Oh, my goodness. All right.
My wife got me the mug.
It looks really good. So, North Idaho Prepcast, IdahoSports.com, audio only at IdahoSports.com, or wherever you download podcasts. If you are watching the video version of this Prepcast on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel or Facebook page, you're going to see the coffee mug that Ryan Scaggs is drinking from this morning. It says, "I pee outside," and it's got
the bathroom guy taking a leak on a tree.
Yeah, looked very festive. This is my coffee mug this morning. Thug Life, and it's
there you go.
A dog. So
if it had a scrunched face, it could be Pug Life, but yeah.
Yes, I thought that's what it was going for, but nope, just Thug Life, I guess. So anyways, we are off and rolling here with our coffee mugs, and we need it because there's so much exciting stuff going on that, I'm just continually trying to find that buzz from all of the great competition we've had, and coffee is about the only thing I can find that keeps that buzz going into the week. I think the big story this past week in competition was the annual Judy Fong Memorial Volleyball Tournament that was held in Lewiston over the weekend. Scaggs, we get to the championship, and you couldn't be from more different worlds. 5A Coeur d'Alene, 1A D1 Troy meeting up in the championship, and the Vikings get the win.
Yeah, it's that final that we all called, at the beginning of the season, that we'd expect to see the 5A versus 1A D1 school in the championship match of a invitational tournament, but that's what we got. And but I mean, that says a lot, I think, about that Troy program and the direction they continue to go. A very successful program and team that they've been. And 5A, Coeur d'Alene's going to be just fine, I believe, in the IEL 5A. But there's been some matches. I think we also saw what Sandpoint beat Lake City in the last few days as well. So there's been some interesting kind of turns as far as volleyball in North Idaho, and I think that there's going to be some sneaky teams up north this year that could surprise some folks as well. But we have the stalwarts. I think Coeur d'Alene's going to be really good this year. We know Troy's going to be good. I mean, they've been good in years past, and that's just a program that keeps churning out great volleyball. So that was I mean, there's some exciting action taking place. I think Prairie even played Caldwell, if I'm not mistaken, in volleyball in the last few days as well. So, and I think it was a 2-1 match. So, I mean, the smaller schools have been able to step toe to toe with the big schools.
Yeah, and that's what makes volleyball so great, these tournaments where you're getting smaller schools taking on bigger schools. For Coeur d'Alene specifically, they have got height in spades this year. Their outside hitters, Paisley Goings is 5'10". Kylie Hart is an opposite hitter at 5'10". But then they've got 3 6-footers. They've got Cadence Green, Gianna Kalari, and Gia Janke. All 6 feet tall, and a senior, a junior, and a sophomore. So they've got 6-footers for at least the next 3 years, at least one, which is crazy to think about.
They've got the height on that front line for sure. And, that bodes well, being able to rack up those blocks at the line. Like, that's going to be at the net. That's going to be interesting to see how that lineup continues to grow and mature as the season goes on, and as they kind of grow to be that cohesive unit. They could challenge it at the 5A just based on the height and what they've got in the skill set, on the backside of that team.
Yeah, and at the other level, 1A D1 for Troy, they're obviously the favorites, but the White Pine League, I think, is going to be really fun, where Potlatch is always strong. You mentioned Prairie. Prairie's got a younger team this year, but they look pretty feisty. Camiai's got the incredible athlete Lainey Landmark. I just think there's going to be a lot of good quality volleyball in the White Pine League and in North Idaho in general, which isn't a surprise to anybody that follows the sport. So
because I think Kendrick's going to be good at 1A D2, and I mean, there's going to be solid play all around.
Clark Fork and Wallace I almost said Clark Fork and Wampus, but that's not no town called
Wampus Cats, but yeah.
Yeah, no town called Wampus. Wallace and Clark Fork both look really, I mean, it's a lot of good volleyball up in North Idaho, for sure. A lot of good soccer action happening as well, Scaggs. In girls soccer, we've had some really interesting results the past couple of weeks. Specifically, we're recording this on Thursday, August 31st. Last night, Wednesday the 30th, Moscow and Sandpoint met up on the girls' side in what has been, to me, kind of sneakily one of the best rivalries over the past several years, where Sandpoint famously was undefeated 2 years ago until Moscow beat them in the district championship. And then Sandpoint got revenge last year. They've just been going back and forth. Sandpoint wins 1-0 on a corner kick in the 72nd minute. Now, Moscow is the team that had more opportunities. They were the team that was in Sandpoint's zone all night, but Sandpoint makes the one that counts. And that's why soccer can be such a cruel game sometimes.
Yeah, it's been, sometimes it's interesting because it's early in the season too, and you're seeing all these league matches take place. I mean, we're seeing a lot at the 5As as well as, Lewiston taking on Coeur d'Alene, and Lake City has had a few league matches already as well. I mean, teams have been beaten up on Post Falls a little bit. The 4As have gotten some wins there. Lakeland and Moscow getting big wins over Post Falls. So it's been a busy early season in girls soccer and boys soccer as well. But we talk about this matchup between Moscow and Sandpoint, and it's always come down to, it seems like the last 5-6 years, the league championship match has been decided between those two teams on who gets that lone berth to state. And sometimes the Bears have gotten the best of the Bulldogs in that sense, because the Bulldogs have been the overwhelming favorite, I believe, for probably the better part of this decade, the last decade. But the Bears just at times seem to have their number, and that's just no surprise that match went down to the wire like it did.
Yeah, Sandpoint off to a 3-1 start. Their only loss was to Lewiston by a goal, 3-2. Lewiston, by the way, pretty good. They're 3-1 in league play. They're 3-3 overall. They lost to a couple of Boise schools in the opening weekend of competition, but Lewiston, Coeur d'Alene, Lake City, all right there in the mix in the 5A IEL for girls. Yeah. Lake City and Coeur d'Alene met in the crosstown match. Was that last week? Saturday. And Coeur d'Alene came away with a 4-1 win. That was kind of eye-opening to me.
Well, I mean, Lake City had that group that had come through for the last few years and been so deep, and I think they graduated a lot of talent off that team that had been doing so well. And I look at Coeur d'Alene, like, rising tides have lifted all boats as far as athletics for the Vikings, and you're seeing that especially on the girls' side. Whether it's volleyball, it's basketball, soccer, softball. I mean, like, all these sports have been fairly successful for the Vikings, and they've got some really good groups of athletes coming through. These last 4 classes that are moving through have just been absolutely chocked full of talent, and it's showing up. I think Coeur d'Alene's going to be a dangerous team, but you mentioned that Lewiston team, the Bengals. They're my dark horse in the 5A. They are pretty lethal as far as what they're able to do, and they're able to score in bunches, and that's going to bode well if they can get offense and get consistent goalkeeping. They're going to be in a lot of games, and they could find themselves playing in the postseason pretty easily.
Yeah, and then at the 3A level, Intermountain League, Timberlake, Bonners Ferry, Coeur d'Alene Charter are all undefeated. They are a combined 8-0 this season. Timberlake 4-0, Bonners 2-0, CDA Charter 2-0. Matches a little slow to roll out there. I know Smoke postponed a couple of matchups early on this year, but we think Timberlake, Coeur d'Alene Charter are going to be competing. Bonners Ferry undefeated. Priest River is 2-1.
Yeah,
it's exciting.
You look at the IML, like that 3A conference, that kind of, it's a mixture of the 2A and 3A schools. The overall record for that conference is pretty solid right now. If you look at it as a whole, like, there's a lot of teams over 500, and I know it's early in the year, but there's going to be some lumps taken, I think, as the league season rolls on. But it's going to be interesting to see. I look at Timberlake and Coeur d'Alene Charter as being the favorites, obviously at the top end of that, but Bonners could have something to say too down the stretch as well. But you just look at the lineup and what returned and the historical success both those teams have had between Timberlake and Coeur d'Alene Charter, it's hard to pick against them.
Yeah, same on the boys' side. Coeur d'Alene Charter has won twice. They've tied once with McCall Donnelly. We talked about that last week. Bonners Ferry, I think, is also a strong team to keep an eye on the boys' side. They just lost to Stillwater Christian from Montana 4-2, but yeah, we'll keep an eye on that for sure. 4A Sandpoint's 2-0. Otherwise, Lakeland and Moscow have kind of been taking their lumps against the 5A schools, but Sandpoint with a 6-0 win over Lewiston, a 4-0 win over Moscow, and now they host Coeur d'Alene, Ryan, later today, Thursday the 31st. We're going to find out pretty quick, where this Sandpoint team stacks up with everything, because Coeur d'Alene is 2-1 and pretty darn good.
Yeah, no, Coeur d'Alene's a solid team, and, we're going to find out if the Bulldogs are for real. I mean, we know what they've been able to do the last few years, just like the girls team, but, I think that, I'm going to say they've been the overwhelming favorite, and they're going to continue to be the overwhelming favorite in 4A up north. But, this could be a group that does some special things this season. I see them making a deep run at state, just based on what they returned from last year's team and the talent they've brought back, that they've had come in too. Like the Bulldog team is deep, and they could definitely make some noise. And it wouldn't surprise me to see them maybe have the best overall record in the IEL this year, just based on the talent and what they've got.
Yeah, Coeur d'Alene and Lake City met in boys soccer on Saturday as well. 5 minutes in, Jacob Molina scores for the T-Wolves, 1-0. That lead held the entire rest of the way. Lake City gets a 1-0 win over Coeur d'Alene. Can't wait for the rematch between the two. That was a really fun match.
So. Yeah, and that's those are two good programs as well, and obviously at the 5A level. So, you could see both those teams realistically making it to the postseason as well. But yeah, between the Coeur d'Alene, Lake City, Sandpoint, that's kind of your creme de la creme of the IEL up north this year.
Yeah, for sure. So that's what's happening in soccer and volleyball. Let's shift the conversation now to football, Ryan, and what happened this past week. I think we have to start with Post Falls. Going to Sandpoint, season opener for both squads, 41-21 Trojans, and no Jake Bustamante, no problem. Tevin Burns, 253 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground.
He was just waiting for his turns, man. He would have been doing this last year too. Like, seriously, we saw him get the touches against Lake City, and he went off for almost 300 in that game last year. We're going to see this a lot week in and week out, especially with that offensive line that Post Falls has back. The hog mollies up front, and then on the back end of that defense, they're as physical as it gets, and they flexed. And Sandpoint, not a bad team. I think with Hunter Garcia at quarterback, they're going to be able to do some things against the 4A teams. They really will. They've got, talent out there on the outside. The defense secondary is really good. The back end of that defense is solid. They didn't lose a lot there from graduation, but, it's up front is where they're kind of going to have to make some hay up on the offensive line. That's where Sandpoint's going to have to hang their hat. But newsflash, you could cue the old-timey radio news music, but this just in, Post Falls is going to be really good this year. You just look at that team and they're complete. I'm excited to see what they're able to do. Coeur d'Alene had a tough game. We'll talk about that one as well. But if you want to talk about teams that have been showing up, I think making the best appearance so far early in this season, obviously Coeur d'Alene got the big win over Rigby, but I would say Post Falls is right there just based on what they showed week 1.
Yeah, and Post Falls was the only team in the league to win. Coeur d'Alene shut out by Rocky Mountain 16-0, but Coeur d'Alene defense came to play. 4 takeaways. Nolan Christ, Tucker Booth, Owen Harris all recovered fumbles. Shea Robertson had an interception. So the Vikings lose a tight one, 16-0. You had Lewiston playing Woods Cross, Utah in the Rocky Mountain Rumble. Bengals fall 35-10. And then Drew Hottinger threw a touchdown to Jordan Bramlett among the highlights there. And then Lakeland, the 4A team, knocks off Lake City 13-12 in the season opener for Lake City. This was, to me, the most interesting game. And we can talk about the other two, but I wanted to hone in on this one specifically because Lakeland builds up this 13-0 lead. Ezra Benson scores on a 23-yard touchdown run. Owen Forsman hits 2 field goals, 25 and 49 yards. Owen Forsman.
He's gonna hit over 50 this year. He'll hit a 50-yarder.
Can I say this? He's too good for the Vandals. He's gonna be. I feel like he's gonna be there.
You said that about Hershey though, going to Idaho State too. So I mean,
and then he parlayed that into a bigger opportunity. So I could see Forsman hitting the portal for sure. Vandals fans don't want to hear that, but
I know. But it's like match made in heaven is like Lakeland kickers going to Idaho. Like that's just what Lakeland kickers do.
Right.
They've had a train kind of, it seems like, special teams wise going through Idaho, but no, I look at Forsman and he's underranked as far as his ability as a kicker. He's so stinking good. That's no knock to Coach Eck and what he's doing at Idaho, but like Owen can kick big time. He could be, FBS really easy. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he's nails for sure. So Lakeland builds up this 13-0 lead, and then Lake City rallies. Avery Cherry throws a 46-yard touchdown to Jacob Hill, brings them to within 13-7. And then with 55 seconds to play, Ike Johnson scores on a 5-yard touchdown run. And I love this, because you can't have results-oriented thinking. You have to just think process-wise. First-year coach Byron Hout, first game at Lake City, says, I'm going for 2 and the lead and the potential win. They don't get the 2-point conversion, so they end up losing 13-12. Now, results-oriented thinking is, you shouldn't have gone for it because he didn't get it. But I loved the call.
Yeah, I like the call.
And I love the aggressiveness and the confidence that Coach Hout had in his team.
Yeah, I'm never gonna like doubt a coach for going for 2. I really don't. I mean, especially in high school ball, with the exception of guys like we talked about, Owen Forsman and Hershey and those type of kickers, there's inconsistency there at times, and that's not, I'm not slighting anybody for Lake City, but I think that your chances are higher, getting 2 yards, 3 yards. I like that chance a lot better than hitting a contested kick. And, so I'm not gonna fault Coach Hout for going for the W there. Just based on the ability that they had in the fourth quarter to move the ball. That makes total sense. And, it's like, close score, Lake City, Lakeland game. It's just what they do, man. It seems like every game they have comes down to the wire, it seems. But that was a good effort and a great game. Running back for Lakeland went off for a really nice game as well. So there's Lakeland's got some talent out there on the field.
Yeah, and I thought it was the correct call by Coach Hout because Lake City had all the momentum, right?
Yeah.
Lake Lund hadn't scored since the third quarter. Lake City had all the momentum, and so you figure you go to overtime, momentum kind of resets, and you kind of give Lake. So, anyways,
they got chunk plays down that last drive too, and I mean, I don't fault the play call one bit because they were just getting chunks and chunks at a time, getting that touchdown. So
yeah, for sure,
there's no second guessing here.
Yeah, Coeur d'Alene and Lewiston, real quick. I think they're both going to be fine. Both played really good opponents. Different outcomes. Lewiston gives up a lot of points. Coeur d'Alene doesn't score any points. But I think of the two, I'm really liking Coeur d'Alene. Now, it was my first chance to watch Lewiston, but I think, boy, this 3-team race at the top, and who knows, Lake City could be there as well. It's going to be interesting to see how league play shakes out.
Yeah, and that's, we talk about Coeur d'Alene real quick, too, is like you look at the opponent that they played, too. I mean,
right.
Rocky Mountain, holding Rocky Mountain to 16 points, that's saying something. There's definitely something to hang your hat on. I think the goose egg on the board is going to kind of get under the skin a little bit of Coach Amos this week. But, when your defense can force that many turnovers and hold, a state championship contender to 16 points, I mean, you're going to take your chances in a situation like that. And, if at the end of the day saying, hey, you're going to hold Rocky Mountain to 16 points, how do you think you're going to do? You're going to give yourself more often than not. Hey, yeah, we could be on top on the winning end of this one. Obviously, offensively, they didn't get it done. But that's a championship effort from that defense. Offensively, they've got to clean some things up. And I think you saw that a little bit, towards the end of the Rigby game, but Vikings are going to be just fine. They're going to be okay.
Yeah. And really six of the 16 points came on a defensive touchdown for Rocky. They've got this kid, Brody Swearhart, who 2 weeks in a row has taken a pick six back for a touchdown. He's playing out of his mind. So really, Coeur d'Alene gave up 10 points to the Rocky offense, which is just really impressive. All right, let's round of applause for Moscow football. They have had a tough go of it the past couple of years with low numbers. And Moscow is traditionally kind of a proud football program. You know, when you look back at the history and even like, you know, dating back to the 1920s and 30s, you know, Moscow was the big bad team on the block. And they shut out Kellogg 34-0. That's a 4A over a 2A, but you got to look beyond that, because when you're in this part of the just building up a program, wins are wins.
Yeah,
exactly. And this is Moscow's first win since September 17th of 2021. Kudos to the Lewiston Tribune for looking up that stat. Rob Bafus is doing what he can to get these guys competitive. And Noah Velasco, 5 touchdowns, 4 through the air, 1 on the ground. And Velasco's 4 touchdowns came to 4 different receivers: Levi Anderson, Keaton Fry, Connor Isaacson, and Butch Kiblin. This was a great.
And there's a bunch of youth. There's some youth getting those tutties too. So, you know, they're going to be, you know, if they can keep the kids out and hungry, you know, the tide will turn in Moscow. I mean, you can turn that program around because you know the talent's walking the hallways there. You know, it's the motivation factor of keeping those kids engaged and keeping them driving. And, you know, they didn't quit. They got the first win. And like I said, take them when you can get them. I've been on the side of some of those teams in rebuilding years, and that is just, it's hard. Like, you can be the best coach in the world, and sometimes you just end up with, I mean, I can remember one year we had, I think it was like 17 sophomores. We had 2 seniors on the entire roster. And so you're like looking, it's like you're a bunch of juniors and seniors, but even that junior class, you're like leaning on them. There was only like 12. It's like, what can you do? You know, so it's like you have to play a bunch of young kids, and that's kind of the position Moscow's in right now. But they're responding. They got to win against Kellogg, who's not going to be a slouch. I think at 2A, they're going to be competitive within their conference this year. They're not going to be what we saw last year. Obviously, those are some generational talents to come through that school. But, you know, to get a win is a win at this point. And you get a 34-0 win. That's a big, big stance for Moscow to kind of take. You know, looking ahead, there's some lumps possibly standing out there for the Bears too, but you know, you take what you can get right now in the season and see what kind of momentum can build through the year. And you know, I don't want to say there's moral victories, but there kind of is in getting that big of a win. So, you know, Coach Bafus has his work cut out for him, but he's doing the right things with that group, and there's talent there. They just got to keep working hard. But
yeah. Good win for Moscow, though, and glad to see him off the schneid a little bit there. 3A football, you've got 2 teams kind of going in 2 different directions, I feel like, where historically Timberlake has kind of been, okay, we're the power up here. We run the ball. We go deep into the playoffs. Bonners Ferry last year had an all-timer, right? 9-0 regular season, lost a lot to graduation. I think Timberlake has now kind of reestablished themselves at the head seat at the table. They're 2-0. They shut out South Fremont 43-0. Now, this is not a South Fremont team that we're used to seeing. They're down considerably this year. But 264 rushing yards in this shutout win. And they've got 3 guys. It's a 3-headed monster with Cooper Lenz, Vaughn Higgins, and a guy they took from the track, Caius Tebby, who is playing football for the first time, or for the first time in a couple of years at least. And he's a great hurdler in track. We talked about this last week, but this is a 3-headed monster in this Timberlake backfield. And I'm really looking forward to. It's at the end of the month. We got a lot of games to go still, Scaggs, but it's a game you're going to be at for IdahoSports.com. We just got the green light for it this week. Timberlake hosting Sugar Salem at the end of the month is going to be a fantastic battle on IdahoSports.com.
I don't, you know, you talk about trap games for certain teams. You're coming all the way up from Southern. I don't want to like jinx anybody, but I look at this Timberlake team and the way they're playing right now. That's a tall task to have a short week, you know, coming out. And you look at Sugar's schedule, and you have a short week coming into that game to where you have to spend a full day of travel to get up here. That's, you know, it's going to bode well for Timberlake. I think in that game, that's going to be a competitive, fun ball game to have on a Friday night in North Idaho. end of September, the weather is usually great. You usually get like cooler evenings, and it's just going to be kind of one of those games that, if you've never been to a game there in Spirit Lake too, that's a gorgeous setting. You got the mountains in the background and everything. And I'm excited for that game. That's going to be a ton of fun, but the Tigers can't get caught looking ahead either. They got to take care of business the next few weeks before that one. But you talk about a primer for a state playoff game. That's, you don't get much bigger than that affair right there.
Yeah, I'm probably a bit premature in bringing this up, but we have plenty of runway still to talk about Sugar Salem and Timberlake. Timberlake this week, interesting game at home against Shadle Park High from Spokane.
That's a win. I look at that. That could be a big win for Timberlake. I mean, it's a 2A Spokane school. You don't want to slight the Spokane teams, but historically, Shadle's been one of those teams that's kind of hot and cold. Last year they challenged a little bit in the GSL at the 2A ranks, but I think that Timberlake could manhandle them with especially the way they run the ball. That could be a big one for the Tigers. Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see for sure. At Bonners Ferry, they go to Eureka, my favorite place in Montana, and they lose 45-0. We'll see how they rebound. I don't know if that says more about the, because Eureka historically is one of the bigger schools for their classification. So, I'll be interested to see how Bonners Ferry does this week. 2A, I really liked St. Mary's hosted Melba in a game that was a late add to the schedule. Melba originally, Scaggs, was going to play Salmon. They were going to travel all the way over to East Idaho out in the boonies and play Salmon. Salmon goes, we don't have enough kids. We're not doing a varsity season. Melba's like, well, now what do we do? Well, let's head into the woods, but the other direction. We'll go up into St. Mary's. I think this was a better matchup for both teams. Salmon wouldn't have been very good. Melba gets the win 38-22, but I thought the Lumberjacks actually played pretty well in this contest. And under first-year coach Greg Rouse, I still like the Lumberjacks a lot.
Yeah, I think St. Mary's gonna be just fine. The way they're able to run the ball, they're gonna be okay. It's just it's one of those early season games. I think Melba is gonna be pretty good this year too. I look at what they've got; they can stretch the field. That Melba team's gonna be able to do some things down south, But St. Mary's, they're gonna be all right. I think league schedule, I still think they're gonna find their way into the playoffs. They played pretty solid defense. They're pretty sound defensively, and they don't do too much. They don't play outside of who they are. And it's TU's coach speak, but I like St. Mary's a lot. They're going to utilize that running game to set up the pass, but that coaching staff, there's some motivation too there. I mean, with everything else going on behind the scenes, but there's a lot of kids that know how to win in that program that have took some lumps the last few years and going through the COVID years too. And I know there's some motivation with that senior class to end with a pretty nice run there for the Lums.
Yeah, Jack Barta, 134 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Trey Gibson rushed for 109 yards. Really, the key was the second quarter. Melba outscores St. Mary's 22-6 in that second quarter, and otherwise, pretty even draw the rest of the way. 8-man football. Let's talk about the game we're going to have this week on IdahoSports.com. It's going to be a little North Idaho game night between Clearwater Valley and Logos. Little White Pine League opener. These teams had drastically different Fridays a week ago. Logos goes to Lakeside, goes over to Plummer and shuts out the Knights 56-0. Clearwater Valley hosts Notice, and they're on the wrong end of it, 72-54. Let's start with the Knights of Logos. Battle of the Knights, by the way. Logos Knights, Lakeside Knights. Logos wins. Jack Driscoll, he completed 6 passes, Scaggs, for 201 yards and a touchdown.
That's, you look at his stats last year, passing the ball at 8-man level. I believe he led all of 8-man in passing last year. But he's got some speed on the outside. At receiver, you don't need to throw a lot if you're scoring a touchdown. It's like, okay, 1st down and 10 from the 20. Whoop, touchdown. Okay, what do you do about that? Like, you're literally throwing like 6 passes, all of which I believe were like 45 yards or longer. Like, it wasn't. So there's not much you can do about that when you're torching the secondary. But he can do it with his feet too. So that Logos team could be a little tricky this year in the White Pine. I look at them; they're a dark horse. They got a tall task in front of them. I think Clearwater Valley, Notice, is really good. Like, let's be real there. Notice is a pretty solid team this year. It'll be a tall test. I think it'll be a fun game. I still look at Logos as getting the win just because offensively they can light it up and they give defenses just some issues. The way they're able to spread the ball out and throw.
I did the math on this, Scaggs. 6 passes completed, 201 yards. That is 33.5 yards per completion for Jack Driscoll.
That's ridiculous. But he was right on my, when I did the all North Idaho team last year, he was on that honorable mention list. Like he was right there. I mean, you statistically look at what he did, throwing the ball. I believe he was a junior last year, so he's a senior this year, if I'm not mistaken. He's going to have himself a heck of a season if they're able to do that again. The defense is going to have to get them the ball back like they did this last week against Lakeside. They can jump on teams quick and early. That Logos team could be a problem come October, November. So or October at least. But yeah.
Yeah. And for Clearwater Valley, this is the game that I was at, Scaggs. So you look at the final score, 72-54, and you go, boy, that's a butt kicking. And yet, when I talked to head coach Alan Hutchins after the game, he goes, really, it boiled down to 3 plays and they got 18 points off those 3 plays. And otherwise, we're even the rest of the way. So the game started off pretty wild. Tiago Pickering returns the opening kickoff for a touchdown for the Rams. Notice goes, okay, we're not kicking to that guy anymore. Not only are we not kicking it to that guy, we're going to do some onside kicks. Notice gets 2 consecutive onside kicks in that first half, and both of those lead to touchdowns. And that's where Notice was able to build up a little bit of a lead. And then right before it, so those were 2 of the 3 plays that Coach Hutchins was talking about. And then the third one was right before halftime. Landon Schleiper is back to pass. He's wrapped up by a couple of defenders. Instead of just taking the sack, he tries to do a Brett Favre style, pass, and it ends up getting picked by Benny Guevara and returned for a touchdown right before halftime for Notice. But
yeah,
I actually was pretty encouraged by Clearwater Valley. They gave up a lot of rushing yards, but talking to them, they think it was more of an alignment issue defensively. They've got good athletes. They just weren't in the right positions. They're going to correct that and fix that. Carson Schilling, we thought was going to be the quarterback for CV. They said, he's pretty good. He's a pretty good running back and receiver. Maybe we'll put Schleiper 6'4" back there. Schilling scores 4 touchdowns. I really think Clearwater Valley and Logos is going to be a really fun, competitive game, and I'm expecting better performance from the Rams in this one.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like you said, it's those few plays were the difference in that ball game. And then you look at it, when you hear a gaudy score like 72-56 or 54, whatever it was, it's like, oh, that's like 3 possessions. Like really, your game is hinging upon probably a turnover and a couple of mistakes, like blown assignments or something. That's literally what happened. And so, you see that, like, you can correct stuff like that. That's stuff you can coach around. To have those coachable moments. So it's like, you keep your head within the game. It's like first game of the year. You can have a game like that and then, show up the next week and you can blow the doors off of somebody if you correct those assignments. So I look at that one. I'm not going to freak out if I'm Clearwater Valley. You got a big test this week with Logos coming to town. That's an offensive team that can give you some problems. So it'll be a good week. And I look at 8-man football this week, man, there are some awesome games going on, around North Idaho and the rest of the state that we'll obviously talk about. But 8-man's, it's getting interesting early with some of the scheduling that's been done.
It's getting early late, especially in the White Pine League. So Friday night, Clearwater Valley at Logos. Garrison the Hunk Hardy will be on the call along with yours truly. I'll be doing colors. So he's going to hate that I called him the Hunk. Having some fun with Garrison over there. District 2 broadcast. Yeah, Garrison's a great guy. So, all right, let's talk about 1AD2 quickly. Kendrick beats Council 66-14. Hunter Taylor was the IdahoSports.com player of the game. 3 catches, 3 touchdowns. He's like Chris Carter back in the day for the Minnesota Vikings. All he does is catch touchdowns. 3 catches, 115 yards, 3 scores. Lewis County beats Salmon River 40-22. Gage Crow rushes for 232 yards and 4 touchdowns in the win. Most exciting game was Deary and Troy. It goes to overtime. Deary is trailing in regulation. Nolan Hubbard leads the team down the field, throws the game-tying touchdown to Tucker Ashmead late in the fourth to send the game to overtime. And then he scores the winning touchdown on a 1-yard run in OT. So good win for Deary over Troy in overtime, 34-28.
Yeah, no, that's a big win. And then you set the table, obviously, for this week. And then you've got games like Oakley and Kendrick, on the blue down in Boise. That's going to be an awesome game, too. I mean, like, there's games all over the place. Lewis County, with the big win, obviously, last week. And I look at the Eagles, that can be a springboard to the rest of the season. They play Cascade this week. They play Council this week, and they have Cascade next week. So 2 games that, you want a couple prove-it weeks back-to-back for the Eagles. That here's your chance right here with Council, a playoff team last year, and, Cascade, a team that hopes to be challenging within their conference as well. And then you follow up with Kendrick. That's kind of a murderer's row for the Eagles, but a chance if you can go 2-1, out of that stretch, you're going to be looking pretty good for the back end of that season as you work your way into the postseason, possibly. Deary is one of those teams, though. The Mustangs could be a dark horse in the White Pine at 1AD2. Looking at what they do, they got Lakeside, Potlatch, Timberline in the next 3 games. Sorry, Kootenai, which is a winnable game. Lakeside, Potlatch. Then you throw Timberline in on that one. That's a stretch right there for Deary. They could be undefeated, coming through down the stretch very easily or very possibly as they close out the year, obviously, with Kendrick. So that's kind of a big test, the big rivalry game at the end of the year for them. That could be a big moment for Deary. With I think a favorable schedule in the middle of the year.
Yeah, Tim Olson doing a good job coaching the Mustangs there. Lapwai did ball out in a big win over Timberline. I still think Timberline's going to be competitive in that 1AD2 White Pine League, and Lapwai might be better than we thought too. That 1AD1 White Pine League is going to be must-watch football every single week. Mullins St. Regis won a shootout with Superior, Montana, which is big. Superior's kind of the 8-man juggernaut over there in Montana. Clark Fork beat Kootenai 26-0. That game was called, I was told, it was called at halftime. Kootenai just, struggling with players and having enough again this year. And I really hope they can, get enough bodies and finish a campaign out. But we'll keep an eye on that, certainly. All right, let's talk about the big game. IdahoSports.com, Friday afternoon. So here's what you can do. You can tune in to Kendrick and Oakley in the battle in Boise on the blue turf at Albertson Stadium, Boise State. Right around the time that game's wrapping up, you should be able to swing it over to Clearwater Valley and Logos for a little double dip of North Idaho game night on IdahoSports.com. Kendrick and Oakley met last year in Cambridge, Idaho, home of the Tri-Valley Titans. Kendrick won a very high-scoring back-and-forth game, and I think the rematch is going to be just as fun. You can watch it on IdahoSports.com. It kicks off Friday afternoon at let me double-check the time.
Matinee football, man. I'm digging it.
Yes.
You can treat your Friday this week almost like a normal Saturday you would with college football.
3 p.m. Mountain, 2 p.m. Pacific
time.
So that's going to be fun to watch. That's going to be a lot of fun.
That's going to be a great venue down there too at BSU. Those 3 games that are going to be on the blue, and there's going to be some fireworks. I think Kendrick, they like to play on the big stage. They're going to put on a show. I mean, Coach Hobart and his crew, they're going to be ready to roll. Let's put it that way. And I know that Ty's probably listening right now in class. So Ty kept that is so because he's such a big fan of ours. I don't know why, but he still is. But right. Yeah, I mean, you look at that group though with what they're able to do in the defensive side of that ball, they freaking fly over the field. Does Oakley have enough athletes to overcome that swarming defense that Kendrick has? They play physical. They get turnovers. I mean, they force throws. So it'll be I think it's going to be a great game. I like the Tigers in this one still, just because I think athletically it's going to be really tough to match up with what they put out there, especially on the outside. You get into a throwing matchup with Kendrick, it ain't going to go well for you.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Neither side, Oakley nor Kendrick, played the starters much because both games were so lopsided. So starters are going to play the whole contest here on Friday afternoon. No doubt.
We want to see what Kendrick is. This is your chance to see what, you get to watch them for 4 quarters probably in this one. So
yeah, for sure. And real quick before we wrap up, I just found out it sounds like Kootenai maybe canceled their game for this Friday. So we talked about having to call the game at halftime last week, now putting the brakes on for this week, and hopefully they can get enough bodies there. Okay, give me one game that we didn't talk about that you're excited to watch, and then we'll duck out of here.
Oh man, I'm trying to go through the schedule in my head and who's playing 5A this week. Post Fall. Who's Post Falls play?
Post Falls is at Timberline. Timberline's not very good. They're 0-2.
Yeah, that's gonna be a win. Lewiston has a. Do they play a Oregon school? Are they playing Pendleton this week?
Yeah, so Lewiston is going to encounter.
Oh, they're playing Capital at Donald. That could be a good game. That could be a good game.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if Capital's good.
I don't know. I like, but Lewiston. I mean, 35-10 Woods Cross is really good, but Lewiston's defense has got to step up a little bit. I think that Capital game could be better than you think, but just athlete wise. But I look at Hottinger having a good. He's gonna have a hot hand this weekend. But
yep.
And we got to see what the running game does. I mean, Jackson Lathan, I think he could go off as well. So yeah.
Yeah. The game I'm most intrigued to see is Wallace at Lakeside, because these are we think there's, Mullen St. Regis at the top, Clark Fork maybe right behind. Where do
you there? Did we lose you?
With these two matchup, Quincy Hall ran the ball really well. Tell me a lot about this conference and how it might shake out. So that's the game I'm most looking forward to seeing how it plays out. So
he froze up on us just a little bit briefly.
Oh no.
Okay, I'll tell. Oh, here's the game. Here's the game I'll give you right here up north.
Did you at least hear the game I said?
Yeah, Lakeside and Wallace.
Yeah, just to see what the pecking order might look like in that league. But okay, go ahead.
Here's your game. Pullman at Lakeland.
Okay.
Pullman, Washington, and Lakeland. That's going to be Lakeland. If they can show up defensively and get some stops, they're going to be just fine. But that's Coach Kofer's team with the Greyhounds. Know him very well. I had a chance to coach with him. Those are two schools that I formerly coached. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. Yeah.
It's the Scaggs Bowl.
That's right. Yeah. I might be walking the sidelines for that one just to take that one all in. But that should be a great game at Lakeland on Friday night. The Greyhounds taking on the Hawks.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one for sure. So, all right. Well, enjoy the competitions all over across every athletic arena this weekend, everybody. And thank you for tuning into the North Idaho Prepcast. For Ryan Scaggs, I'm Brandon Baney, and we'll see you next time on IdahoSports.com.